Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary. Tonight, I have a special guest with me, host of the Whiskey Vault, the Whiskey Tribe, and heir to the Whittington chime music, which we'll be hearing right now. So,
yeah,
yes,
that's funny.
I have this wonderful thing playing in the background at the moment. So we're gonna have to talk about that because I just learned that about you tonight, actually.
Yeah, I had to Google it, actually. Yeah.
But anyway, so I have Daniel on tonight. Well, actually, first off, Daniel, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thanks for responding to the email.
Of course. Well, when Daniel comes calling, you usually respond. But even still, so Daniel emailed me probably a couple of weeks ago, and it took me a little bit to get to it. But basically, he said, "Hey, I started a new course through the Wizard Academy that I wanted to talk about on your channel." And of course, I'm psyched to. And he kind of set up this whole thing and let me take the course first so I could see if it was any good. Happy to say that I did appreciate it and I did like it, and we're going to talk about it a little bit tonight.
This would have been so much funnier if you didn't. It would have, like,
yeah, I got a big surprise for you, Daniel.
That's good TV right there.
Right. So actually, well, I see you sparking up a cigar, so I don't know if you feel like waiting to pour whiskey for a couple minutes, but I am not going to.
Oh no, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna start with Flaming Heart.
Fantastic. So you're going Flaming Heart. I'm gonna go the Bona. Starting off light tonight, and then you'll have to tell everybody about your cigar too, because I know there's quite a few people who really appreciate cigars in the chat.
Yeah, we'll have to put this. Somebody put this in the comments so that anyone who shows up, we don't have to keep repeating what cigar I'm smoking.
Oh, that's fair.
My favorite, Flor de las Antillas, the My Father series.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a really great cigar, box press, and I really love these.
Nice.
Anyway, so there you go.
I can count the amount of cigars I've had on one hand. It's just not a thing I'm against. I just never really do it. So unfortunately, I know nothing about what you just said. It could be super impressive or like you bought it at CVS. So I don't know.
I just spoke the limits of my cigar knowledge.
Okay.
I got nothing any deeper than that.
That's why.
Abenade? Is that the cask strength Abalor?
It, of course, yeah, because I got to start with cask strength.
Did you hear about? You know the story behind that one, don't you? Like the origins of the Abenade?
Oh man, I did a video on it a couple of months ago, which means I remember nothing about it.
Yeah, that's about how I work too. But this one stuck out to me because it was so funny. It was based on a cask strength whiskey they found in the walls at Abalor when they were remodeling. So they were tearing apart a part of the building to expand for new stills, and the workers found a bottle in the walls of cask strength old Abalor, and by the time the foreman showed up, it was half empty.
Okay, I love it.
They started drinking it.
Oh, it evaporates out of the bottle.
Yeah, so he rescued it. He's like, no, and they tested it and they tried to recreate it with Abenade.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Or at least that's the story.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I remember coming across pictures of that bottle while I was doing my research. So yeah, very cool.
That just made me laugh because it was such a Scottish thing. The construction workers like, hey, free whiskey bottle.
Yeah. You ever had any of that wall whiskey?
Yeah, that's a classic.
Nice.
Eric wanted to know if Bonafide was a Scottish Gaelic term.
Well.
Yes, sure. It is now. By the way, it's getting a little bit gusty.
Yeah.
Supposedly it's gonna start raining here, and I didn't know that, but it's only a 30% chance now.
Okay.
So
we'll see how that
70% chance that it won't, and that was enough to risk lighting a cigar out back so that I could hang on in my backyard.
Well, depending on how quickly you go through the cigar, you might beat the storm. But either way, we'll figure it out. So people calling us the Bald Brotherhood or the Whiskey Bald, the Bald Whiskey Brotherhood. Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
it's a thing. There's a lot of us out there.
Yeah. What is it? Brother from another barber. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So cheers to you. First off, congrats on the launch of a new product. That's always a big deal.
Yeah, thank you. That was a lot of work. But it was a lot of work one time, which was kind of the goal. The goal in creating the program was two things. One was to create a sort of fundamental whiskey education that like was for people who wanted to know more about the whiskey production, what they were drinking, and how things were made, and what's in a bottle, but have no intention of being in the industry, getting a job in the industry, starting a YouTube channel, anything like that. They just want to know more. They want to be an educated consumer. And honestly, we're also sort of aiming it at bar staff. Where it's like, hey, if you're a bar and you have a decent whiskey selection and you want something that'll teach all your bar staff the basics of like, so they can talk about whiskey knowledgeably, this is a great, easy one-shot. It's neutral as far as whiskey origins in the world. The other online programs that were friends of ours, they're really great programs. Edinburgh Whiskey Academy and or Edinburgh and Moonshine Use Stave and Thief program. They both have online versions of their certifications, and they're great, but they're definitely focused on bourbon or Scotch or Irish.
Yeah.
And so we sort of took a back step, focused on production in the 5 regions of famous whiskeys. And then we ended with how to hold a whiskey tasting with friends.
Yeah. And actually, I really liked that about the course. So first off, I think we should even take one step back because there's people in the chat who have no idea what we're even talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll kind of break that. So Daniel in the Wizard Academy, I'm assuming this is your brainchild. It seems like it was. Started an online course. It's I want to say 20 chapters, I think, but each chapter was mercifully and wonderfully only like a minute and a half long. And then you take a test, and the test is like maybe 4 or 5 questions at the most. Actually, there was the one bit of feedback I gave Daniel about this is that I wish that there were more questions on a couple of the sections.
I was going to wait till this to tell you.
Sure.
We're adding questions to the North American whiskey section.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I guess we'll get into that later. But either way, so this is what this is about tonight, other than just Daniel and I kind of hanging out and having a drink, is talking about this brand new product. And so you mentioned it's kind of aimed at not only people, but also bar staff. And I think that's a really smart move. Of course, complimenting the marketing guy on having a good marketing idea. But, makes a lot of sense because, I've taken classes. I'm in software, and I've taken a million classes on random things. And it's like a really good idea to get a bunch of people in a room and have them learn stuff, or maybe pay for a license for each person. And then they get to kind of like take that knowledge with them. And now that's a thing that they can claim on their own resume.
Right.
And just like a certification or whatever. So it's a cool idea. I like the technique there.
Yeah. So it's technically a product of the Whiskey Marketing School, and it's called the Bonafide Whiskey Enthusiast, and it's aimed at enthusiasts. So it is 100% online, $150. You register for the course, and you have access to that content for all time. So once you take the test, you can still go backwards and watch all the videos again. And there's a downloadable PDF version of all the content that you can use as well. So that's the hardest. So we were trying to figure that out for ages because we love our in-person program, but I didn't want to create an online thing that bastardizes the SOM School.
Yeah.
And SOM School is only right for a very small group of people.
Well, not only that, but given you could tell people to take the course, they should go out and buy 6 or 7 whiskeys so that they could drink along with the course. But you're not going to replicate what you have in the vault.
No, and they're not going to replicate the classroom experience, and we're not trying to, But so many of those programs are really well focused at a very specific grouping, and it's best to live in those things. So. Yeah, spreading it out and doing an education program. Now, what I really love about it is now we're crawling in on 100 graduates right now on that.
I'm number 46, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. I want to also start creating gatherings around people with the Bonafide card.
Sure.
Right, like where there's meetups and hangouts, and we can chat. And there's other resources that get sent to that list, and we create sort of a little small subgroup of Bonafide whiskey graduates. And then if it really takes off, I would, in the long run, I'd love to see local meetups of Bonafide hangouts.
Yeah. I will say up here in Massachusetts, there's very little of that. Even so much to the point where, some of the other whiskey tubers have put stuff together in their areas. There's like
Right.
nobody in Boston that drinks whiskey apparently, except for like everybody that I've gotten into whiskey. So,
Right.
although funny thing, so somewhat recently I did. Well, actually, it was like a year and a half ago at this point. I did a barrel pick with 3-chord, right? So when I did this, they ended up, they sent me all the bottles. I actually had to ship them out of my own house because that's legal. But they sent me the barrel as well, like the empty barrel, just like, hey, you could do whatever you want with this.
Right.
So this barrel sat in my garage for like a year and a half, and I had nothing to do with it. And so the other day, I finally was like, let me throw this up on Facebook Marketplace and just sell it. And so the guy that wanted to buy it, he came by and we talked whiskey for a sec, and he was just like, oh, why do you have a single barrel? I told him about the channel. He's like, oh, I've got like 450 bottles in my basement too. And so I'm like, this is going to sound weird because you don't know me and I don't know you. Do you want to come see the studio and have a drink? so I dragged this like no-name guy down to my basement. We both actually we ended up drinking the 3-chord. I still have some of it left, which was cool. But I'm also like, I don't know anybody else in the area that has more bottles than I do. Never mind that many more. So
evidently you're all out there. You just aren't talking to each other.
We're all inside drinking.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So one of the main drivers for this program for me was my real core passion when it comes to whiskey. If I had to pick only one thing.
Okay.
It's not making whiskey. I love blending whiskey. That's a huge passion for me. But as far as like, if I wanted to leave, like what was my mark in whiskey, it would be education.
Totally.
That's all
with
that
you.
I actually give a shit about. And what the people who I help have a hand in teaching go on and do next, right? The program's idea was to raise general low-level whiskey knowledge up so that just the general consumer, the people commenting on YouTube channels, the people going to stores and trying things at the free sample days and buying bottles and going to gatherings, that they ask questions that get them closer to what they want and closer to what they love and things like that, right? One of the benefits of having a YouTube channel is that you do that all the time, right? You're always doing small micro educations. Even if your goal isn't to educate people, which is usually a terrible goal. If it's just to, talk about a whiskey and explore and open people's horizons. What's been your favorite thing that either you learned through the process of studying whiskey and all these things that's really made a difference in your world? Or what's the coolest feedback you've gotten from someone that you had an accidental impact on?
Ooh, I like that. I'll start with the second part first, only because that's easier. For better or for worse, there are a ton of YouTube channels that started because they saw my channel and were inspired. And so I get that a lot. And actually, there's been a few times where I've had those people on my channel as guests, and the feedback that I've gotten from them, either before or after, where they're just like I can't believe I'm going to be on your channel. Like I was watching you for 2 years before I even started. Like, that's awesome. The first question, actually, I would say, although it seems very obvious, the absolute enormous amount of chemistry that goes into whiskey, but more specifically whiskey flavors, is something that's been really cool to learn. Because I sucked at chemistry in high school, and I took a little bit more interest in it after college, just because it was interesting some weekend, I guess. I don't know. And then learning about how much just all these amino acids and all these different little flavor, the esters and the fatty acids, all this stuff, and how it affects the actual flavor of the whiskey. And then being able to talk to, there's a guy from Found North, Nick Taylor, which you may know him.
From where?
It's from Found North. He buys a bunch of whiskey from Canada and then kind of puts it together. And some really, really, really good whiskeys. It would be worth your time to look them up.
That's cool.
So Nick Taylor, he's an extremely knowledgeable guy. And I've had him on the stream a few times, and we've chatted. And the guy, I literally just sit here, and I'm just like, wow, you know about whiskey. It's like how some of my friends feel when they talk to me about stuff. So actually, let me turn this around back on you with a little bit of a difference. So obviously, you've been doing the YouTube thing forever, but somewhat less recently, you've really been getting into trying all of these different, I don't know if I'd call it finishings, but you've been getting really creative with what you've been putting out of your distillery.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know, like, that was a bit of a left turn, but so
No.
other than I think you were just talking about something either in the chat or right before we got started. What is something that you've got upcoming that you're very excited about, and what made you choose that?
Okay, so I think the coolest thing that just came out that I'm obsessed with is the Jackalope blend.
Okay.
Yeah, that was 2 months of working with 5 base ingredients.
Okay.
Tried to nail down this blend. And it was everything I love most about blending and everything I love most about doing whiskey stuff, where I got to just, no one fucked with me. Everyone left me alone. No one asked me how it was going. They didn't even know I was working on it. I was just doing it in the background, and I was just assembling and building, 2 or 3 dozen ratios, letting them sit for a week and a half, going back, taking notes, marking where it went wrong, taking notes on why I thought it went wrong, redoing blends. And I got all the way to the finished product where I was tweaking the finished product, and I couldn't tweak it to where I wanted it. And so I started over, but with knowing what I knew now.
Yep.
I did that twice. Twice I tweaked and then scrapped the whole thing and started from scratch. And I landed on this blend that I think is my favorite thing I've ever had a hand on.
Now, so when you say 5 ingredients, are you talking about 5 distillates, or are you talking about 5 types of grain, or what are you talking about?
Distillates.
Okay.
So what I started.
You said blending, but I wasn't sure if you were doing some.
Yeah. What I started with was 3 barrels from Balcones. 1 was bourbon cask, and 2 were wine casks, both sherry, I think, but I don't know which versions of sherry. And I think 2 of them were. I'm guessing on this, but I'm trying to remember right now. I think 2 of them were Scottish malt and 1 was Texas malt.
Okay.
And nice. I can't remember which was which. And then a barrel of real spirits ale. Their Devil's Backbone ale. That malt mash bill.
Okay.
But obviously no hops.
Right.
And aged in new oak, I think. And then I have a tank that still has 174 gallons in it, but at the time had a lot more. And it was 15-year-old light whiskey, a blend of 8 barrels. So we dumped 8 barrels into this tank of 15-year-old light whiskey. It was 13 when we got it. Spent 2 years in Texas. It's from MGP. It's their 99 corn, 1% barley mash bill. The Balcones barrels were all 3+, and the real spirits was 2.5, crawling in on 3.
Man, that sounds like a lot of fun. You're kind of really selling me on this concept.
No, it had. So one of my first mistakes was thinking I was going to use the light whiskey as my base,
right?
And that's going to be the volume portion, and the malts were just going to round it out for a bottle count. And it turns out every time that I did that, the light whiskey took over and dominated everything, and it tasted thin and metallic, even with the malt. It had these layers of like harsh tannins, and because it was kind of old, and Texas really changed it. I discovered something, and Zach, our vice chancellor at Wizard Academy, he's like, maybe don't tell anybody this, but I'm bad at that. So I always like to tell everything that I know every time I'm doing something, because I figure, most people aren't going to do anything about it anyway. Right. And those who have the gumption to go and do something about it will probably end up making something even cooler that I'll get to drink someday. So
that's true. Wouldn't exactly impact you. Yeah.
What's the downside, really?
Plus, here's video evidence that you thought of it first.
Yeah. So what I don't
April
know how
18th.
Yes. Blend. Yeah. Like, I don't know how Compass Box blends. I don't know their methodologies. I don't know the methodologies of most blenders. I know a handful of blenders. And what I see as a lot of industry standard was starting with a base and then adding till you get to a flavor you like. What I discovered was, to get this one right, I had to go backwards, which is I had to start getting the malt flavors perfect in a sense where, like, it was hitting all of the notes that I wanted. But what I found when it was only the malts is every nose and every sip, it hit all of the things that I wanted, but it did it all at different times, and they all stood distinct from each other. And so you would smell, and it would just go crack, 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 crack.
Okay, yeah.
It was like, wow, this is amazing, but it's like a lot going on. And then you'd taste it, and it was amazing and rich, but there was a lot going on, and it was just, you know, whew. And I discovered that if I brought in that light whiskey as a binder, it sort of like threaded through and glued everything together. And it took the whole blend from all of these fighting pieces to one cohesive flavor profile. But if it went over 28%, the light whiskey took over.
Okay.
So in the blend, I think it's 22% and change. And that was the right amount for it to just bind everything and hold it together, but not destroy the flavor profile.
I think that's interesting. You said that you have so much of this left, which means that obviously, like you said, you were kind of counting on that being the base for the light whiskey. Yeah. But you'll do something else with it.
Gallons left. So the thing I'm most excited about next is I'm now working on the second one.
Perfect.
This one is peated.
Okay. So obviously it's going to have a very different profile.
Yeah, well, this one I'm going to use most of the same ingredients. I still have leftover Balcones. So when we dumped the Balcones barrels, I ended up with like 2 gallons of one, like 8 gallons of another, and like 15 gallons of another. We ended up with a total of somewhere around 28 to 30 gallons of leftover Balcones.
Which how many bottles does that translate into?
Oh, maybe 100 full-size bottles.
Okay, yeah.
120. So I dumped all of those together just to limit my choices and force my hand, and I rebarreled it.
Nice.
So it's been sitting in the barrel for 6 months now, that dump of leftover Balcones. And so now I'm going to be working with that, the real spirits, the rest of the light whiskey base, and then I'm going to be adding our peated malt that we made at Crowded Barrel.
Nice. Cool. I've tried many things that you guys have put out just in one capacity or another. I actually bought that, I forget what it's called. I have it up here. The top shelf, because that's where it belongs, right? So the Crowded Barrel Alliance series, the blend number 4. Yeah. So
number 4?
That's number 4, yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, it's funny though, because it's so small. You probably have this problem as well. When the bottles are small or when it's like almost gone, the last thing you want to do is drink it, because then it'll be gone.
Yeah, but then it changes so fast.
It does, right? Yeah, so luckily this one's about 75% still there, so it's not going to change very quick. But yeah, that one's, I do occasionally sip a little bit of that. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. My favorite one is still the first one that we ever did, but that's a really good one.
Nice. Mamuka, thank you for the super chat. And Eric, by the way, thank you for the super chat earlier today. Yeah.
Thanks for the greetings there, sir. Cheers to you.
So he is one of, so I do this thing every year. I call it, what is it? The whiskey challenge, basically, the year whiskey challenge. So this year is 2023 whiskey challenge. And the idea is I challenge people to drink a type of whiskey from every region. And then when you're considering world whiskeys, I think there's like 13 something different regions that I have. But also, even from each type of, like say Scotch, like there'll be 5 or whatever, however many styles there are in Scotland, I have those all as individual ones as well. And I say you have to drink 10 unique types of whiskeys across all of these different categories, but you can't duplicate any. So you can't have 2 Spacesides, you can't have 2 Taiwanese whiskeys, whatever. And people really seem to love it. And like they send in pictures and they have like a PDF that they fill out, all this stuff. And he actually probably does it more than anybody else. I get submissions from him almost every day.
Okay.
So, yeah, he's pretty great. So by the way, if anybody has any questions for Daniel or myself, feel free to jump in. He's way more interesting than me, so you know.
Let's put this. I'll say this. I really just wanted to hang out with. So I sent this email to you, and I sent it to all the YouTubers who've ever hung out with us, and it was just my first request of like, hey, would you have me on specifically to shill for this online whiskey thing that I built, because I'm really excited about it and I want people to know about it.
For sure. And that's also why we're talking about blending whiskey, because if I just let you shill for an hour, that's going to be miserable.
That's so that's why I'm here, but I really just wanted to get a chance to hang out too and drink whiskey together with interesting people.
Absolutely.
So ask questions about Bonafide, because I'm not going to keep talking about it unless someone asks a question about it.
Well, actually, I was going to redirect us back there anyway, actually, because there were a couple of things I wanted to talk about with
Please.
that I feel are natural enough. So I kind of mentioned this earlier. The absolute 100% thing that you guys did right with this course is each one of the videos being so short was awesome. Because I mean, I'm like anybody else. I'm extremely busy, probably even more so than many. And what I was able to do is I would actually watch your courses. Like if a meeting ended early, I would watch like one or even like up to 3-4 of your courses within 10 minutes. I actually remember there was one, and it might have been the American one, or it might have been Irish actually. One of them was like 8.5 minutes, and I remember, it was only one video that was that long, and I looked at that and I was like, oh man, this is so long, and I was like, no, Bill, it's not, not at all. And then I watched it, and I will say, when I was taking the tests as well, you would not believe the apprehension that I had. I'm like, I literally can't get anything wrong. Because if I get anything wrong, like my last 8 years have been for nothing. So
no, you say so. This is a lesson that we always teach, which is in creativity, your handcuffs are what make you your flaws. The weaknesses, that's what's going to make magic.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you can do anything and the world is your oyster, that's blank page syndrome. That it halts all progress, right?
Yep.
But if you have limitations, a lot of times the coolest things come from your limitations. And so that short video was not the plan originally.
Okay.
So I wasn't smart enough to think that through. I realized it after the fact, just like you did, watching it. Which what happened was I'm too busy, and I didn't have time to memorize a 2-hour script.
Yep.
Right, in order to get everything that we needed to get taught for the test.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine most of this. I would imagine most of the stuff that you do for the Whiskey Tribe is probably. It seems like if you guys script that, you do a very good job of hiding that.
We don't script it, so it's normally outlined. So we know the beats. We know the beats that we need to hit, and we just sort of make it up and then transition through beats. So what I did was, I broke it up into segments so that it would be easier for me to deliver to the camera without needing to read the script, and being able to like pick up a sheet, read one page, remember, set it down, and then deliver to the camera. And then I could set that aside in my head, go to the next location, pick up the one page. Yep. Okay, good. And deliver it. And doing it in beats like that let me do it with almost no editing. I mean, the editing is great.
Yeah.
I should say, there's a lot of editing, but it wasn't content editing. It was shots and framing editing, right?
Yeah.
And Alex, who does a lot of the editing on the Tribe videos, he's the one who shot and edited all these videos for me.
Okay. Well, they all looked really good. So
he did an incredible job.
Yeah, the lighting was perfect.
The whole time, just standing there, you know.
The audio was perfect, which is very important because that's kind of the whole point. Oh, yeah. I mean, audio is always important, but in something like that, you don't want to struggle to hear somebody.
So all the cool things you like in editing were him, and I'll tell you, just to finish that, and we'll switch the bottles. My favorite thing was we ended it, and I was like, 20 videos, that's a lot. And then I went back and we loaded it into the system, and all of our team was like, oh my God, this is perfect. And it turned out to be something that just worked.
Yeah.
And we did not plan it that way. It was done for convenience, but it couldn't have worked out better.
Well, that's awesome. It was a happy accident then. You kind of nailed it. Yeah, it's funny that you totally read my face. I'm like, I want to move on to the next whiskey.
Yeah.
So are you on the Auchentoshan yet?
I am pouring it right now. You ready?
Awesome, cool. Yeah, so I'm going to have the 12-year, and I believe you said you're having the 3-wood, right?
I'm having the 3-wood because I actually like how wine cask heavy the 3-wood is.
Yeah, I don't recall being like a super fan of the 12-year-old, but when you said you were having Auchentoshan, I was like, you know what? Yeah.
I know the 12-year-old like the back of my hand. I can spot it on a blind tasting on any day, no matter what's around it.
Yeah.
Because
the smell.
For 5 years, I gave a tour of Scotland in my office.
Okay.
To students every class. So roughly, 40 to 50 times a year or more, I gave this tour. And I only pulled 5 whiskeys, and Auchentoshan 12 was one of them. So for I've delivered Auchentoshan 12 in a tasting probably 500 times. So I know 12 like nobody's business. I love that whiskey. It's both beautiful and fruity, but it's also kind of earthy and musty, and it's kind of malt grain barley forward, but it's also soft. I just think it's a great whiskey.
It's funny. I was just smelling this, and actually, I might be proven to have a bad memory here because it smells really good.
No, it's great.
The sherry is huge on the nose. I was actually that in the so it says honeysuckle on there too, which I like. Actually, it's kind of cool. It has the tasting notes and stuff right on the front of the bottle, which I think is good. I wish more whiskeys would put their mash bill on it and general things that you should be trying to taste and nose.
Yeah, this one just has maturation on the front. Bourbon, Oloroso, and PX.
Flavor's a little thin on the 12, but the finish is good.
It's grassy.
Yeah.
It comes across as grassy.
See, for me, I'm tasting mostly the sherry on the finish, but I'm getting that earthy bit that you were talking about, but it took a minute to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, compared to Spacesides and Highlands, it's kind of got this funk to it. This sort of like herbal vegetation funk.
Yeah. That's not as bad as I remember. I'll have to go back and rewatch my own video.
That's high praise, indeed.
Yeah, right. It's not as bad as I remember.
As bad as I remember it being.
You know, it's funny.
By Auchentoshan.
I forget what whiskey it was, but there was a while back that I was I think I was going to do some sort of like a compilation or something, and I was like, oh, I wonder, like, what did other people say about this whiskey? And I went on YouTube, type whatever it was, and my video came up first. I was like, oh shit, I've already done this whiskey. Like, no memory of it, man. It's I've been doing this for so long. It's I mean, you do like 5 of these a week. I can't imagine how many times that must have happened to you. But
yeah, I have a pretty decent recall on most and on things that made an impression.
Yeah,
I don't have a recall of everything I've ever drank. Like, so there's plenty
of
bottles.
Proper 12 is high up on your list.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, what did I say? But if it stood out, then I can recall that one no matter how far gone it is.
Okay. Yeah, actually, there was one whiskey I tried at the vault that I gotta try to find a way to get my hands on. It was from Three Sails, the South African whiskey, I think is what it was. Yeah, and I remember it being absolutely delicious, even after having, I mean, typical amount at the vault is like what 46 whiskeys, you know. so, but I remember I think Matt came over to me and he was like, "You got to try this one," and I was, "Yeah, sure, why?" You know. But it was standout. So very, very good.
A lot of the Auchentoshan independent bottlings are really good. So if you can get a single cask from, any of the independent bottling companies that do an Auchentoshan, those are really good. The signatory ones, they do an Auchentoshan. It's really great.
Nice. So speaking of shilling, so you mentioned single cask. So I've got a couple of single barrel picks that just came out recently, and this is more for anybody watching. I started a new website called Whiskey Dick Picks. Because of course I did. So if anybody's interested, I have one up there from Barrel that's an Armagnac finish, and then I have one from Starward that's just their typical kind of Solera, but it's super.
Starward. Oh,
I know. I'm totally with you.
They were my favorite bourbon of the year in 2020.
No, Starward's the Australian one.
No, I'm thinking Starlight.
Starlight, yep.
In Indiana. Yeah. No, Starward is cool. We only have a couple in the vault. Yeah,
I've had a few. I've built a bit of a relationship with them. They send me their like unique stuff every now and then, and they were when I talked to them about doing a single barrel, they were like, oh yeah, we can't wait to do one in the U.S. I later found out they've done a couple in the U.S., but not very many. And this one's super high, like their whole deal is red wine finish and whatever, so it's really, really, really good. But I don't want to make this about me. So
no, it's still good, man. It's your fucking channel. You can do whatever you want. It is about you.
Everything's about me, Daniel.
Starward. I remember when I researched them was like they took it very seriously, and that's one of the things that was really cool. There were several at the time. This is 8 years ago. At the time, it was fledgling, just like American craft. There were a couple of old dogs and a whole bunch of upstarts, and some were like really serious and some were just like, man, whatever, and they're sourcing and blending and young, but
Mhm.
Starward, I remember being like, no, these guys are not joking.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Actually, one thing I like. So, hold on. So their whole logo is this little symbol here, and I messaged actually I was able to get the I don't know if I'd call him that. I don't know if he's actually. Sorry, let me back up. They are not necessarily distilling as much as they are, but they're like putting in this whole Solera system. So,
right.
But I messaged the guy that owns the company. I was able to get his email, and I was just like, "Is that the thing from Voyager 1? Like the satellite that was launched like forever ago? The probe that do you know what I'm talking about?"
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, "That's pretty awesome that you recognize that because it's the thing that's on that gold plate that kind of shows where we are in relation to a bunch of pulsars."
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, "All right, we can chat." So, yeah,
nerd alert! You're my
total
nerd.
I don't really do much things halfway, Daniel. It's I obsess about a thing for like 5 years and then I move on to something else. This is probably the longest I've had a hobby other than like playing video games.
Your channel started before ours.
Yep. I started in 2015. So, yeah, it's been a while.
Not much before ours.
No, not much. I think at that point I was only doing like one video a month. For about the first year, I did about one video a month, and I was like, I think I got 1,000 subscribers just doing that. And I was like,
I think we started in like October or November of 2015.
Yeah, that sounds about right. You guys were around pretty much right away.
And we were not even close to the first. There were like a couple dozen YouTube channels at the time, which I did not know when we started ours.
From what I could tell, From what I could tell, when I first started, it was Ralphie, of course, and then Scotch Test Dummies had
what's his name, German dude,
the Whiskey Reverend or something like that. Whiskey.com, yeah. Horst, I think,
Horst,
But then there was some dude named like the Whiskey Reverend or something, and then there were a couple other. There was the Whiskey Bitch, if you remember her.
I don't.
No, and then there were maybe like a couple of others, but for the most part, it seemed to be an untapped market. And I was like, I could do better videos than some of these people. So, Whiskey Dictionary.
My favorite thing about the journey of YouTube whiskey has been like the new guys getting in are so good at video.
Yeah.
And editing and production and like they're so good. And it's such a joy to watch. Like now, it used to be when a suggested whiskey YouTube video popped up in my YouTube stream, it was just like us. It's just someone sitting in front of a microphone talking about whiskey. But now it's like there's shots and there's slow-mo and there's
the B-roll and everything.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. And I mean, that's just cool as shit.
I totally agree with you. It's cool to see, and I could tell that they watch a lot of the same videos about video editing that I do, like Daniel Schiffer and stuff. Like I'm like, all right, I recognize those shots. But
Phil, First
Phil, yep, he does really good.
Dude, his videos are art.
I was gonna bring him up too. Yeah. You know what? A lot of those videos, you know what they look like? They look like this.
So many of them.
I set up my lights to Alexa, which is awesome. I just tell her to turn the studio lights on, or it's probably my favorite thing about being down here. So hey, everybody in the chat, what are you guys drinking tonight? And do you have any questions about this thing? Because I mean, let's give Daniel a bit of a platform to talk about this online course he's doing. Quick breakdown. It's called Bonafide Whiskey Enthusiast. Is that like the actual name, or is it just Bonafide?
Bonafide Whiskey Enthusiast.
All right, cool. And it's $150. It's a bonification. Yeah, bonificate, yes. And it's $150. And for the price of a really nice bottle, you could learn most of what a lot of people like myself's beginner whiskey guides, all of those things, a lot of what we're teaching you, except honestly, Daniel does a much better job at it. It's cool because he stands in front of like his still and he actually like hits it and he's like, this part is this thing, and it's cool to watch. I genuinely enjoyed it, and the whole time I kept being like, I'm so glad I know what he's talking about. I just kept waiting. I kept waiting for you to be like, oh yeah, at a column still, like nobody uses those. you know, just or just something that just totally spat in the face of everything I thought I knew.
Yeah.
So.
No, again, the videos were another limitation, which is I really wanted to have these cool like drawings and photos of things, but like we don't have time for that shit.
Nah.
So
I think it was better without it.
Yeah. So instead, I was like, I'm just gonna. I luck out. I have a distillery. I'll show you what it looks like. Here it is. And I think that turned out to be a better choice anyway.
So we have a couple of questions coming in, which is great.
I have one that I saw earlier that I want
to
answer before you read the one you're gonna do.
Sure.
Eric Waite asked if there's merch.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Bonafide, and here's the answer: 100%. We haven't made it yet, but it's only available to people who've passed the Bonafide test.
Can you give us a sneak peek? Anything in particular?
Secret merch store. I haven't built it yet. Well, we already have all of the things that that are going to be written on them and things like that. We've been working on those in the background. So now it's just picking. Is it going to be hats or shirts or what? But yeah, it's only available to people who've passed the test. Uh-oh. Yeah. If you're talking, I can't hear you because somehow on my end, your video froze. But on the live stream, I can still see you talking and I can still see me moving. All right, while he's figuring that out, hats, answer this question. If you were buying Bonafide merch, would you rather do shirts, which have to be sized, which we can do, or hats or merch that doesn't require sizing, like glassware, Glencairns, things like that? And Eric Wade, I'm going to design you a custom Bonafide Speedo, but only if you wear it at the Bastards Ball. Am I the only one who likes trucker hats? Because I prefer trucker hats. The dad hats, they make me look silly. I wear them and I look like a little kid wearing his dad's hat. My ears stick out. But a trucker hat, it looks different for me. So I think if I do hats, it's going to have to be trucker hats. Bonafide coins, I already am working on them. So they will 100%, they're in production right now. Coasters are good. Yep, absolutely, Gabe. Glencairn coins, those are all good. Hey, I hear you moving around.
Yeah, you can hear me a little bit.
Yeah, that worked.
Right. So, hey, everything's back. I don't know what happened. I blame. Thanks for holding down the fort. I saw you were answering questions. I could hear everything going on. So.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah. I don't love trucker hats. My wife likes me in trucker hats, so I mean, maybe that's why. Yeah. But.
Is there a reason?
No idea. I think she says that. Well, actually, I do know the reason. She says that like the hats with the back just look like old man hats.
Yes, that's what I think.
Yeah. So, but I personally, I don't even. Despite the no hair, I don't wear hats a whole lot.
See, I wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
I love hats. But because I used to really love having hair.
Yeah.
That's my version of getting a new hairdo.
How old were you when you kind of just had no hair?
22.
I was 26. 22 is rough. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, 23. Because
23.
I had 2 years
yeah.
when I was touring with like famous bands and playing on huge stages, and I had hairstylists doing really cool shit with my hair, and I got that for 2 years, and then all of a sudden it was all gone.
Yeah. Actually, so I wanted to tell you this because you are a musician. So my dad played the trombone, and he used to tour kind of all over the place. He wasn't in any band that you would have heard of, but he was...
Wait, he played what?
The trombone.
And he toured?
Yeah, he did.
What kind of band was he in?
So, well, this is exactly why I wanted to tell you this. So, one of the bands that my dad... So he was in a few bands, and one of them, I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it, but it actually was somewhat popular. But the one band name I do remember, he played in the Funky White Honkies. So
I love that name.
I know, it's so good. It's so good. So he, but he used to play the trombone. I remember actually my dad is very much a white guy, but he had an afro, which just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it was like boom, right? And he showed me a picture one time. He was in Aruba for like a month playing, and he got just this really deep tan, and he had an afro. And he shows me the. I'm like, that is not you. Like that does not look like my father. So who, by the way, looks very much like I do now. So it's.
Eric says your dad played in a heavy metal band, which with trombone would be truly amazing.
That would be. Have you ever seen what is it? Timmy Trumpet, I think he goes by. It's something to look up. If I think about it, I'll send you a link later. But it's this guy. He does. It's almost like dubstep with a trumpet, and
I love it already.
Yeah, it's kind of awesome. So
I'll tell you my favorite band name I ever had. I was in high school, and I was in a band that had like 11 or 12 members because it was basically just all of our friends.
Okay.
Like 12, anybody who could play anything. We only played at a couple of places in Waco, Texas. And we would just get this whole group of like 10, 11 people on the stage and play all these cover songs. And we would just pack the place. And it was just this party basically.
Wow.
And our band was called Zamboni.
Okay. That's pretty good.
And our logo was a push lawnmower.
Perfect.
That was it. It just all our shirts had a push lawnmower,
just Zamboni
underneath it, and Zamboni on the top.
Did you have like the death metal text? So it was like Zamboni. You know?
Yeah, that's still my favorite one.
Now, what do you play? I think I've seen a picture of you playing the guitar, but
I play whatever I got paid to play.
Okay, cool.
So I started on drums. I was a session player.
Okay.
As well as a touring musician. So I started on drums. That's still my first instrument. I picked up guitar at 16, and that became my primary instrument for a lot of my career.
Yeah.
Drums, guitar went back and forth. I did a lot of vocals, backup and lead. I did bass, electric and lead, some keys, just whatever was needed in the studio.
Nice.
I would say probably guitar and bass. I mean, guitar and drums. That's my two.
Okay.
Things.
I played the piano for about 5-6 years, and then I picked up the alto sax, and then I bought myself an acoustic guitar when I kind of moved out on my own, and I was like, I have no musical ability at the moment, like no way to play anything, and I've been teaching my daughters to play the piano mostly because I'm just like I'm never gonna do anything with this, and
you should.
Yeah,
Learning music alone changes your life forever. And
for sure, absolutely.
Everybody should have music lessons, no matter what they intend to do with it, no matter if they're good. It trains your brain to think differently.
Totally agree with you. Actually, not only that. So if you ever saw me type on a keyboard, it is a thing of like it's insane. Like I can type at a speed that would it blows people's mind when they see it. And I totally attribute that to playing the piano as a kid.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And just having that ability, like, I don't know. We have a couple of questions in the chat that we totally shouldn't ignore.
Yeah. And I saw one from Eric I'm going to answer too, but go ahead.
All right, so Mamuka asks, Longmore 18, Anok 18, or Deanston 18?
Anok.
I actually totally agree with you. I was a little bit on the Longmore, but yeah.
Older Longmorns are boring.
Yeah, well, I'm with you.
They're pretty.
You really liked the 16, if I remember correctly, right?
No, I do, but the original, new 16 is more boring.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, but it's more boring. It actually has a lot older whiskey in it. So they thought they were improving it.
Yeah, the Anok 18, or is it a no? I think it's a no, right?
I think it's a no.
I think so too. Yeah, I even remember I had the beginning of the episode I did on that where I was like, no, it's pronounced. That's again forgetting everything you know. So the Anno 18 is one of my like favorite whiskeys. So for me, that's not even a competition.
No, that's solid. And it's got character. And I like Deanston, but mostly the Virgin Oak and the 12.
I got the Virgin Oak right there.
Yeah,
totally with you.
Deanston, they get simple. So Eric asked if could you do gift certificates for the Bonafide program? And we thought about this at the very beginning. So there's a button on the landing page where you can Bonafide a friend.
Yeah. Do some of that Bonafide.
Would you like to bonify a friend? And you can purchase the course for a friend and put their info in, and it will send them the invite to register and take the course.
That's cool. My only thought is it would be cool, and maybe an improvement in the future, to be able to, and maybe you could just do this, buy it in order to give it to somebody. Because if I sign up and I sign my friend's what?
Right. Like a physical card?
Not even that. Well, I mean, that'd be cool too, but more just thinking like, if I sign up my friend and they get an email immediately, but their birthday's not for 2 weeks.
Yes.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Done. Well in. Would it be cooler to have a physical object?
I think so. I think people like to unwrap things. Yeah. I think that would be way cooler. You could even do something. What was that?
How could we make that so absurd? It would be hilarious. Like, fuck business cards.
Yeah.
What if what we sent you was like a poster size 11 by 17, but all it was just redeem this card. You couldn't do anything with it, but it's huge.
You know, you've probably seen these. Like, you could buy a greeting card that's like 24 inches tall, and it like opens up just a huge. That would be something cool.
Oh yeah, no, that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Purchase a Bonafide gift card.
And it's an extra $12.
No, you'll pay a little bit more for it, just so that, because we're gonna buy a massive, completely absurd card.
Yeah. I think that's an awesome idea, actually. Let's see. So Mamuka, let's see. He says, "What did you think about my question?" So maybe he missed it. We both thought a no 18.
If that was the question, then yes.
Yeah, if there was some other question,
just a few questions, but yeah.
Let's see. Gabe says he'll definitely try out the course. Hopefully he can pass. Yeah. I will say, actually, and I won't give anything away, but the last answer, I'll just say on the first question, totally threw me for a loop, because I was like, that was not in the material he just talked about. And then I was just like, I guess that one? I don't know. Like it. Yeah. No, you know what I'm talking about. That totally, as just somebody who didn't know what the heck was going on, that was very confusing. But I thought it was funny by the end.
No, we wanted that to be a surprise, because then we repeat that joke and story every single test.
Yes.
So by the end, it's just pounded into you.
It really does. It drills it into your head, which I also think is funny. So my last summer, my parents, they paid me, or they didn't pay me, but they asked me to host a whiskey tasting for like a charity thing. So I bought a whole bunch of whiskeys, and I went and I taught, I think it was like 20 different people, all about various whiskeys. And I pretty much did exactly that on all of them. Like, you know, I talked about the maturation, and I talked about the fermentation. I talked about all this stuff. And I as I was answering that on each one of those questions, I was just like, I did it wrong. I did it wrong.
Dude, talking about nerdy things is a weakness of smart people.
Yeah. My wife would agree with you.
Yeah, they always think that everyone else is going to be just as excited about all these nerdy things as they are, and even in nerd groups, that's not true. I'm lucky. And by the way, there was a question in the past. Where is that?
Oh, sure.
Casey Metallic. I think it's 75% is the pass requirement. But honestly, you can't pass it without answering every question right. It's not possible, because we make you retake it until you get it all right.
Yep.
So, in the music industry, which is where the majority of my career has been, I spent 18 years as a touring and studio musician.
Wow.
So the whiskey industry, I've only been in it for 10 years.
Yeah, you're doing all right.
Yeah. But I was always the guy who worked more than most of my friends in the studio. I got hired more, and it wasn't, most of my friends were better than me, but I knew what the studio needed, and I showed up. I didn't argue about money. I had everything memorized before I arrived. I executed in 1 or 2 takes, and I left.
You were a professional.
That will get you hired better than all of the virtuosos all day long.
Totally agree.
And I never had opinions. I just, what do you want me to play? Okay, I'll play that. So, but one thing that always happened to me is I would be on tour, and I'd end up in a room full of drummers, because, you know, we'd be the opening band, or we would be a band in a festival, and you'd be like, stuck with all the drummers or stuck with all the other guitar players or something. And they all start talking about drum gear and heads and sticks. And I just wanted to shoot myself. I just don't care. Like, I know enough about all those things to know exactly what I want on my drums to get exactly the sound that I'm going for. And outside of that, I give zero fucks.
Yep.
And totally so I'd be like, I want to go somewhere else and talk about something interesting. And then I started playing guitar, and all the guitar player conversations were even worse, like pedals and amps and spring mix.
Oh, sorry, that wasn't meant to distract you. I was showing the audience.
And guitar players just want to talk about gear. And so when I got into whiskey,
even with guitar players, they like that too, huh? Yeah.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah.
I got into whiskey, and I thought, finally, people just can talk about something we love to drink and what it tastes like, and won't this be fun? And it turns out it's the same humans.
Yeah.
They just want to nerd out about the same fucking things.
Yeah.
And I find myself over and over hanging out in conversations where I'm like, can we talk about like books or stories or like can we talk about something other than whiskey? Because I'm tired of talking about whiskey.
But I think I've told you before, Daniel. So I'm a director of software engineering. So when you talk about dealing with nerds all day,
oh god, yeah.
I think I could at least meet you. So, although your audience probably has a fair share, I've found actually the absolute number one thing that has helped me be successful and get to be a director is the fact that I can talk about things that aren't computers. And that
absolutely,
yeah, it's if you can be interesting, and my parents drilled that into me more so than your last question on your tests. About being well-rounded, like if you can talk about anything, then people will like you. So
no, I've found that when I met a lot of famous musicians, the one thing that made them stick around and hang out and carry on the conversation is if I asked them about anything other than their music or music gear or recording or right.
Yeah.
If I knew that they liked, like one of them liked to sail or one of them liked hiking or, they liked something else, and I'd ask about something totally unrelated, and then we would be off to the races, and everybody wanted to talk about that.
So that kind of begs the question, Daniel, other than music and whiskey, do you have time or any interest in other hobbies?
I'm mostly outside of music and whiskey. It's mostly outdoor.
Yeah.
So I used to rock climb competitively.
Competitive? Okay, you got me beat. I used to rock climb actually a lot too.
Yeah.
But Rudd, I'm curious. Tell me about that.
Well, no, so that's forever ago. It doesn't matter. I love rock climbing is the point. And so I still rock climb.
Okay.
I'm at like 30% of where I was when I was climbing competitively, but I still love every second of it.
Yeah.
And so I rock climb, I mountain bike, and I really love paddleboarding. So I love getting out and just doing physical things. Those are my hobbies.
Nice. All right. So if you were climbing, even if you kind of backtracked a little bit there, if you were climbing in any competitive form, and now you're about 30%, are you climbing like? First off, are you outdoors or indoors for the most part?
These days, indoors because it takes less time to show up and climb.
Absolutely. So are you climbing? I'm gonna guess that on a good day you're climbing a 510.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I'm into the 510s. Usually, I will max out at like the C's and D's.
Nice.
But I can do 5.9s for hours.
Yep.
And just work on form, and that'll never kill me. I love overhangs.
Yeah, I love overhangs too. One of my favorite pictures of me was doing an overhang. If I were to go like right now, I'm about the level where I could do like a 5.8 fairly easily. But anything past that will kill me. Yeah, which is not all that, like it would take me maybe a week to get past that. It's just I go so infrequently now that I've lost all the forearm strength. Yeah.
Although I did find, because I took like an 8-year break.
Yeah. Gone. Everything gone.
Everything's gone. But here's the good news. I discovered that within a couple of visits, I was kicking the butt of all of these young kids who are like twice as many muscles.
Nice.
No weight to carry around. And it's just because I knew form and balance.
Yep. I was going to say, that's the one thing you don't forget.
Form and balance.
Yep. Yeah, like sticking your hip up against the wall and flagging and all that stuff. Yeah, cool. Man, I could talk about rock climbing forever. So yeah. I used to play a lot of paintball too. Yeah,
that's always sounded fun. And here's my fear of paintballing. It feels like golf, where it's like I would get into it, love it, and spend way too much money, and it would take over my world.
So here's the good news about that. So although yes, you could spend a lot of money if you go a whole lot, but the gear, like even if you splurged on the best possible stuff, you're still only talking a few $1,000s. Like, and that's the best stuff.
Yeah, that's just called half a year of golf or less.
Right. Totally. But yeah, no, I used to play a ton in college. We convinced my college actually to sponsor us as a team.
Nice.
So they would pay our entry fee, and then they would pay for a certain amount of boxes of paint. So my friends and I, we would go every single weekend, and we got so good that we literally would go and just not get hit. And it was starting to lose the fun because we just wouldn't get hit. And so then we started wearing Santa hats and calling ourselves the Santa Squad. And there'd be like 5 of us just rocking the field against way too many people, and it was awesome. It was some of the best time of my life. It was really fun.
I've only ever been one time in my whole life.
Yeah, did you get lit up?
That was in my 20s, and I loved it, but I haven't done it since.
I ended up taking my nephew a few times, and that was really fun. He enjoyed it, but yeah, really fun.
Eric is talking about disc golf. I never got into disc golf, but I used to play Ultimate on competition teams out of high school.
Nice.
And so I used to do disc golf rounds with my disc golf friends, but I would bring one Ultimate disc.
Yes.
And I would do the whole course with an Ultimate disc.
Were they the nerds with all the different weights and pretending they knew what that meant and all that stuff?
Yeah. So they would always destroy me off the tee.
Yeah.
Because they would go like 3 times the distance.
Mm-hmm.
But I would usually match their par because their close game was for shit.
There you go.
And I'd be like, I'm going to get 3 shots and I'm going to make it.
It's
going to take me 3 to get to your 1, but I'm going to.
But you'll hit the target. Yeah. Yeah. We used to play a lot of Ultimate in college as well, and just right out of college. But on our campus, we had an 18-hole golf course or disc golf course set up. Not by the campus, just by like us picking landmarks, and that was the thing. Yeah. We had this really awful statue, and it was literally just an obelisk with a hole in it, and art. But one of the holes was get it through the hole. Really fun time actually. It's funny. I haven't thought of that in a while.
My first lessons in disc golf were we would play. We turned Baylor University campus into a disc golf course, and we would play starting at 1 a.m.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was totally it. You had to play in the middle of the night, of course.
Yeah, because otherwise,
and drunk.
Yes. Will get you. Yeah.
Actually, one of this is an appropriate story for this group. One of the first times that I got drunk in college, actually, was playing disc golf. We were drinking in our room. We had a 7-person suite, so we were all just gotten hammered, and then we were like, let's go play frisbee golf. And we go outside, and I remember I threw the frisbee and it landed in a bush. And this is like a whole thing of hedges. And I said to myself, I need to go get that frisbee. So I start running towards the bushes. In my head, totally like I'm going to belly flop into these hedges. And I had enough time to have the drunken thought, hey, don't jump in the bushes. And then I blinked, and the next thing I know, I'm on my back in the bushes. But I had the frisbee. And then my friends, of course, being like, hey, get out of the bushes, we're going to get in trouble. Yeah, so.
Hey, there's a question in there that I'm interested in, which is Casey Metallic. He said, what was your day jobs before YouTube full time? So I'm curious about this question because neither of us do YouTube full time.
Right.
But I don't want to hassle Casey, but is that an actual, are there, I don't know a single whiskey YouTuber. I don't know one that does whiskey YouTube full time.
There are 2, really? As far as I know. And they're together, and it's the Bourbon Junkies. They have just this last year they both quit their jobs.
Okay, but they have an entire network, and they're doing barrel picks and
And they're the only ones. Although I would guess I've talked to Jason and I are pretty close. Actually, this is another plug. So we have a secondary channel called Dungeons and Drams, where me and Jason and Clifton from Bourbon Bites. Ed from Rockout Review and Adriana from Whiskey Mountains. All of us play D&D.
Cool.
Yeah, so we play on Dungeons and Drams. So
yeah.
But so Jason and I have gotten pretty close over this whole thing. We've talked a lot, and I would guess he's pretty close. I think that he's currently at the point where he is fully exhausted, but able to hold down both things. So why wouldn't you have both salaries? But I don't want to speak for him. I think he had said that he might.
IT job, effectively. I am a chancellor at the business school at Wizard Academy. That's my actual job is business education.
Yeah.
The YouTube stuff for me takes up 3 hours a week.
That's it? Wow. Man, I would kill for that. But what I need to do is hire an editor.
Let me finish that.
Sure.
Rex, I would argue, is a full-time whiskey YouTuber now.
Okay. That makes sense.
Whiskey Tribe is and Crowded Barrel is the only thing that Rex does now. So the distillery, right, and the Whiskey Tribe YouTube channel and the online community and the merch and all of that replaced all of Rex's previous clients. And so now we have, I would think Whiskey Tribe is probably the heaviest staffed whiskey YouTube channel. Because they've got 3 full-time employees.
Yeah.
That aren't Rex.
You guys do a lot more editing and fun stuff and shooting outdoors or whatever.
So we've got Brianna, who's doing a lot of social and background stuff, and then on camera we've got Alex who's doing a lot of editing and video shooting. We've got Rex who's doing editing and shooting, and then we've got our new operations guy who works both with Tribe and with Crowded Barrel, and then Rex is also overseeing a lot of the Crowded Barrel stuff. So you could argue that that's full time, but for me, it's less than part time.
Yeah, actually, so this guy Kyle Taylor brings up a good point. So there's a guy named Bruzel who got really, really huge from doing YouTube Shorts, and I've checked out his channel. His videos do really well, and he certainly could be full time, but I'm not sure. I think he's probably a bartender, and then does that as well. SLB Drinks, I'm not sure about that guy. I've never really talked to him, but his channel is really, really large very quickly as well.
Good. No, I hope that happens. I hope that we just keep seeing Whiskey YouTube grow, and I hope we keep seeing new voices enter, and they're all adding something really interesting, or at least the ones who last are adding something interesting, and I think that that's magnificent.
Yeah, actually,
I do like that. I do like keeping a foot off of YouTube because it keeps your YouTube videos grounded in the real world at some level. But that's just a preference. I feel like I can't have that attitude as much as I would love to have that attitude. If I didn't have to edit, I probably would. Because I would spend more time just filming and having fun with it. But Eric Waite kind of put out a good thing. He's like, I spend more than 3 hours editing a video. And actually, I usually tell people, whenever I meet new people, I tell them what I do. They always ask, how much time does that take? I tell them it takes about 5 hours per video between research, filming, and editing. Yeah. 100%. If we didn't have editors for Tribe and Vault, I couldn't do it. I don't know any of that shit.
Yeah. I've had to learn a lot of it. Actually, it's been good for my career though. It's improved my public speaking quite a bit.
100%. Yeah, the impact. Emma was talking about this at Balcones. She's constantly being pulled into video shoots at Balcones and front-facing gigs at Balcones because in the entire Balcones distillery, she has more public speaking video time than anybody there.
That makes sense. So
she knows how to hold her own and hold a room and talk to the camera naturally, and she doesn't get flustered by people putting up a camera. And that's all from living in the world that we all built.
Yeah, you definitely knocked any of the nervousness having a camera randomly stuck in a person's face that, man, you guys are like a drill sergeant there.
Yeah.
Emma, what are you doing?
Yeah. Drop and give me 20.
Right.
Well, any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Well, I was just about to say, so I just poured my last drink. It's the Corey Vrecken. I love this glass. Nice. Every time it comes on, I show it off. So it's a Lefroy glass dipped in Maker's Mark wax. If that makes any sense. But yeah, no, I guess I'll give you the floor. Any last thoughts? No,
I think I'm only on this thing because I'm grateful. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to talk about this thing that I care about.
Yeah.
But I would love to see this Bonafide thing grow, just to see the base level of whiskey knowledge grow in the entire online community.
Mm-hmm.
That the YouTube questions get more complex and interesting, and the conversations get more interesting, and everything rises.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to see that. That would be my goal from this whole thing.
I will say, even though it's a fairly common saying, the very first time I ever heard it was actually in the vault with you and Rex. I think it might have been Rex, but it could have been you. One of the two of you said, "A rising tide raises all ships." Right?
Yeah, no, that's very common.
And I've used it myself a ton ever since. Having a smarter audience will only drive creators like myself and yourself to be better and to make cooler content, and we can be more advanced with what we're teaching. Or educated, or whatever the phrase you want to use.
Just the conversation.
Just talking about, right? Yeah. I took the course. I really, really liked it for the reasons I talked about earlier. The short videos are awesome. The fact that you have the written word, not only are you accessible, 508 compliant, good for you, but also I know people, I think Sarah was talking about how she read it faster than the video was talking, which is pretty impressive. So all of that is really cool. You can kind of just do it when you have time, and then eventually pass this thing, and you get a cool little metal card. And it's for the price of a really nice bottle of scotch. And at the end of it, you're going to know a whole lot more. You're going to kind of pick up a lot of information that you get from some of like the Whiskey Tubers intro to whiskey kind of videos that we do, except it's filmed in an actual distillery by a guy who knows more than I do about it and can do a better job teaching it in a short amount of time. So as far as I'm concerned, I loved it. I thought it was totally worth the money. So well, you put together a good thing.
Thank you. Cheers to you. Eric, your card just got mailed out.
Is he actually? No, he's hoping for it. You know what? 69. Honestly, Eric, you have a chance because I'm 46 and I got mine like a week ago.
No, I'll tell Eric. I mailed his out on Monday.
You know, I'm really hoping. I'm hoping right now because you did the same thing for Sarah, and she said she hoped she was number 42, and she was number 42. If Eric is number 69, I'm gonna have to call shenanigans.
Look, no, it's not. He's not, and it's gonna be a missed opportunity because that would have been hilarious. He is. I'll tell you right now. So if it shows up in the mail for you, wait.
Hey, Whiskey Mountains, nice to see you. Kilko.
He's 55.
55. That's not bad. That's about how old he is. So
yeah.
Actually, that might be young. I have no idea how old Eric is. I like calling him an old man, though. It's fun. Yeah. Well, Daniel, it's been awesome having you on. I hope it's not the last time. And, good luck with the new project. Anybody watching, you can find a link to it in the description below. And, I hope you all have a great rest of your night. Cheers.
Cheers to you all. Thank you.